please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. The Anil Ambani group of companies is surging. This is after, remember, Reliance Industries closed that deal to sell the Mumbai power business to Adani Transmission. So Reliance Infrastructure anyway had positive news because their debt comes down to 7,500 to Adani Transmission. So Reliance Infrastructure anyway had positive news because their debt comes down to 7,500 crore rupees. But Reliance Power too is gaining as we speak, while Reliance Capital has now surged close to about 5%. So big move seen over there. Reliance Communication too trying to join the party with an uplift of close to about 1.5%. Let's invite Ashwani Gujral and Rajat Bose on the show now. Ashwani, pretty sideways at least for the Nifty. The banks are underperforming. The bank Nifty is down 140 points. What happens from here on?
See, something very interesting is happening on banks. Now, the logical explanation is that macros are turning worse, rupee is falling, crude is going up, so we should fall. But instead what is happening is that the corporate banks are seeing buying. So from the lows, PSU banks have recovered sharply, ICICI Bank has recovered sharply, and hence possibly there are some large players, etc., who are using this decline on financials to actually buy into it. So my sense is that there is no follow through on the downside on financials, and Nifty is unchanged almost. So that just means that the macros are not really bothering the market, and we could by the close see short covering, and possibly Bank Nifty will recover even from here. So right now we are long on Bank Nifty futures. Nifty also you can get long on, because when bad news is not impacting the market, that basically means that the market is fairly strong. Having said that, I'm interested in PSU banks where I see more recovery to set in. So Canara Bank is a buy with a stop of 278, target of 292. BOB is a buy with a stop of 144, target of 156. And Bank of India is a buy with a stop of 94, target of 102.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for that, Ashwani. Well, let's go across to Rajat. Rajat, your take on the Nifty, as well as you have some picks for us?
See, my Nifty expectation for today would be that I'm expecting a close around 11,700, and I'm not expecting 11,650 key support level in my chart reading is going to be violated, because since it has not violated in the morning, chances are that it would not be violated in the later half of the day, and we would see a close around 11,700. And regarding the Bank Nifty, I would say that I'm expecting a close between 28,100 and 28,200. Of course, unlikely that it will go to 28,200. 28,100 to about 150 would be the range for Bank Nifty around the closing time. Having said that, I have chosen one buy and one sell. A bank stock, private bank is a sell. Kotak Bank sell with a stop loss above 1280.50, and target would be 1262 and 1258. And I'm buying Cadila Healthcare. Right from 11:30 onwards, the stock is actually on a recovery trail and not tested the early morning low. So this looks like a good bet on the long side. 396 and 399 are my targets, and I put a stop loss below 387.80.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. Let's get the early rates up from the European markets. Yesterday was pretty much, mixed. The CAC and the DAX, were up marginally, up about 0.2%. The FTSE had a cut of close to about 0.6, 0.7%. This morning, we had weakness in the Asian markets, particularly the Chinese as well as the Hong Kong market, and that seems to be flowing through across the Atlantic as well. So the CAC, FTSE and the DAX currently in red. The FTSE continues to be the underperformer, a cut of close to about 0.5%. Get into a break then. On the other side, we'll get you an exclusive conversation with Jayant Sinha, the Minister of State for Aviation, on what's ahead for the sector.
Well, the investment cycle is improving, but it's still very weak. That's the word that's coming in from Mahesh Vyas, MD and CEO of the Centre for Monitoring the Indian Economy. He adds that investment cycle will follow production uptick, but with a lag. Let's hear him out.
The investment cycle is reacting to the production cycle. So there is some improvement in the production cycle. So besides those sectors we mentioned earlier that are doing well, we also see the RBI's OB-CUS telling us that the capacity utilization has gone up, and that's in the vicinity of about 74% now, although March is a little seasonal, and that could be the reason why it is high. But nevertheless, there is some increase in industrial activity. It's weak, but it is there as yet. The investment cycle increasing, but very, very marginally. It's too weak for us to say that that is showing up in a big picture.
All right, let's get to the promised CNBC TV18 exclusive. Minister of State for Aviation, Jayant Sinha, says the aviation sector is in the midst of a cyclical downturn. In an exclusive conversation with Shireen Pan, he also talks about the government's plans for reviving the sector. Here is an excerpt.
As you know well, and I think everybody who's been following the airline industry for some time knows, the industry is very cyclical, and it's driven by 2 or 3 factors. One, of course, is yields, that is, what the pricing is. The other is oil prices, interest rates, and then, of course, the currency. So right now we have a situation where interest rates, the currency, and oil prices are heading in the negative direction for the airline industry, and as a result of that, we are going through a classic cyclical downturn for the airline industry. Now, as far as the government is concerned, as far as our role as policymakers are concerned, we are working hard to be able to provide a supportive policy environment for the industry so that people can get through this downturn well and in a healthy fashion. Of course, we have a situation in the industry where we have, particularly as far as domestic travel is concerned, wide separation in terms of the full service carriers and the low cost carriers. The low cost carriers obviously have a much superior cost position relative to the full service carriers. The full service carriers try to make it up with better service, with the frequent flyer programs, with the international travel. So it is, of course, a very intense competitive battle, and in that competitive battle, of course, the full service carriers have not been able to maintain their profitability as they had in the past. So we have to see how all of this plays out. Again, as I said, industry conditions, of course, are going through a cyclical downturn, and at the same time, we have this competitive battle going on between the full service carriers and the low cost carriers as well.
You're absolutely right, because yields also continue to be on a downward trajectory, and we are now seeing interest costs, the currency depreciate, and oil prices surge. Given that, what is the government's plan of action? Is there anything that you can do beyond trying to engage with the GST Council on ATF, which has been a long-standing demand, but we haven't seen any forward movement? So what can the government do to provide any kind of relief to the sector?
As you know, Shireen, the Petroleum Ministry and the Ministry of Civil Aviation has recommended multiple times to the GST Council, which includes not just the central government but all the state governments, and where all decisions are done on a consensus basis, that aviation turbine fuel should be included in GST and that full input credit should be given for goods and services. So we have petitioned to the GST Council multiple times. We are hopeful that at some point they will recognize that we should, of course, do that for the industry, and that will obviously benefit the industry as well. Growth is very strong. The demand for air travel among our traveling public is very high, and of course, a lot of capacity is coming into the system because of the large order books that our airlines have right now. So with capacity coming in, demand continuing to be very strong, we are seeing that fares and yields as a result of that have not gone up either. So it's a very intensely competitive environment. It is very, very competitive for everyone right now, but it is really up to each of the individual players to be able to figure out through this very difficult competitive environment what their strategy should be.
Since you're talking about individual players traversing these difficult times, let me ask you specifically about Jet Airways. Have you had any conversation with the management of Jet Airways on the current situation? We understand that there are multiple probes on, that is what reports suggest, whether it's the income tax department or it's even the Ministry of Corporate Affairs looking into the company's affairs. What is the update that you can give us with respect to the government taking cognizance of the affairs at Jet Airways?
Those matters are handled by different departments of the government, different ministries of the government, so I can't speak to that. I personally have not had any conversations with Jet Airways. They have met with officials in the ministry, and again, as I said, the goal of the ministry is to be able to create a supportive policy environment for all the industry players.
All right, it's expiry day, so it makes sense to look at the options data. The 11,800 call, that premium is totally wiped away. So now we're looking at the 11,700 call. That's the important mark. Very, very active in today's trading session. It's added close to around 25 lakh shares, very, very approximately. And in fact, the premium from the time we started off has fallen from around 30 to around 9 rupees on. Now that's telling you that the bears believe that they can defend that mark. That's around 11,710. 11,730 odd. So if we get up and going, then in fact, now that could lead to a big surge. We'll have to keep an eye out on that mark. But now the screen is telling you that, the smart money, they're writing that particular option. They're looking to eat into that premium of around 30 rupees. Now it's down to around 9 rupees. So keep an eye out on the 11,700 call. Very, very active in today's trading session. Slip into a short break. You come back, we'll get you an exclusive conversation that we had with Prashant Pandey, the MD and CEO of ENIF. Welcome back then. We've spoken enough about the equity markets. Let's shift focus to the commodity segment. Manisha Gupta is with us as always. Manisha, over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Nigel. There's so much happening in the global markets which seem to be impacting the metal prices. We have seen good amount of buying continue for the aluminum prices, though in this week itself it has gained up by nearly 3.5%. Aluminum also seems to be a bit of a concern when you look at Chinese markets, where we are looking at output curbs. Aluminum actually happens to be the only metal which is trading in the positive for 2018 as well, and the outlook for the rest of 2018 also seems positive, as the supplies are not so much and the demand is expected to be on the higher side. The NAFTA negotiations has been yet another thing that has led to global tensions, or rather trade tensions easing. The US-China trade concern still seems on the higher side, but the other one, of course, is the relief on quota that the US has put out in sense of aluminum to Argentina and in sense of steel to a couple of countries like South Korea, Brazil and Argentina yet again. So that also seems to be easing off concerns as far as the trade tariff quota goes in the markets there. Joining us to talk more about that now is Ranisha Chenani. Ranisha, hi, good to have you. What is your own sense on the metal space right now? Because there are so many reports, so much of concerns when it comes to trade between various consumer and producing countries. How are you looking specifically at something like aluminum or copper?
Hi, Manisha. Good afternoon. I think there is this tug of war going on in metal space. One side, we have this positive news coming in yesterday that US has, put up deals with NAFTA, and they are positive, and they have even, given some positive hints. So the sentiment in the market has turned risk on because of this. And on the other side, we have that Chinese economic numbers are not that good. Investment demand is not that good for base metal pack. So that is a negative trigger for prices. So I think prices are overall trading in a range from past few days. But as the news comes in, we are seeing some triggers that are giving some rally or, putting the prices down. As of, if you talk about aluminium, yes, after this yesterday's news, as you specified for US and Argentina, prices have got some support. I think this uptrend would continue for aluminium, particularly till 155. But I think copper is still in the risk of, risk on sentiment mood, and prices are not sustaining at high levels above 422 or 423. So I would give a sell recommendation in copper below 421 for the targets of 416 and 15 with the stop loss of 424. And for aluminium, I would give a buy recommendation at current prices for the target of 155.
Fair point. Aluminum continues to be in a buy, but how are you looking at the crude oil prices now at a 1-month highs, and most of the fundamentals still on the positive side, with more buy calls actually coming in from the global experts as well? What's your sense on what mark are the Indian prices now looking at?
Even I was on the positive side and buy side in crude oil till now. My target was around 4900 to 4930, and I think this target has achieved. But here I am a bit cautious. I think prices have run up too much too far, and there could be some profit booking that could come in. And 4950 is a very strong resistance for crude oil at MCX, and all the positive fundamentals are already discounted in the prices. So I would recommend, and I would say, in fact, one should wait if prices break 4900 levels. Selling should be initiated with a stop loss of 4950, and downside we can see targets like 4830 and 4820 on the lower side.
Fair point. And would you continue with the sells on the precious metal space as well? Because we have seen some buying there, perhaps correction on the higher side. But at these levels, especially for gold, how would you want the trade to be?
Gold got a good trigger after US and Mexico had, redraft the NAFTA deal, and prices were trending higher. But still, we haven't seen any more positive trigger that has come in. So prices are expected to trade in a range as of now. And if gold sustains above 30,200, then only I would recommend a buy in gold for the targets of 30,350, and stop loss should be kept around 30,100. Even in silver, I think the range is from 37,000 to 37,500. Prices need to sustain above 37,500, then only we'll see an uptrend continuing. Otherwise, this rally would fade out, and again we'll see some profit booking. So buy only the resistance level. For gold it is 30,200, and for silver it is 37,500.
Okay, thank you very much for that. By the way, crude oil prices have risen a tad bit. So now currently it's 77.5. Earlier in the morning it was hovering around 77.3 per barrel, dollars per barrel, and now it's inched up a tad bit. But with that, it's a wrap on Halftime Report. Stay tuned. Business Lounge will take all the market action forward. Stay tuned.